twice.
Good evening. I'm political editor Dennis Welch, and this is Politics Unplugged. And tonight we are talking about your utility bill and a lawsuit that could keep it from going up. And joining us right now is the man who filed that lawsuit, Arizona Corporation Commissioner Bob Burns. Sir, it's always great to see you. Thanks for joining us here on the show. And basically, the commission, a majority of the commission, everybody but you, voted to increase rates by anywhere between $4 to $7. You're suing to stop that now, in part because you're saying you're not able to determine how much influence some utilities have over regulators due to the political campaign contributions.
Well, yes, that's true, and thanks for having me on. And but I go back to the issue that, you know, I was elected to do a job, and the commissioners, the other commissioners, are not allowing me to do that job. I took an oath to the Constitution and the statutes of the state of Arizona, and it's my reading of them that I have the authority to investigate a utility as an individual commissioner, and they don't seem to agree with that, and that's sort of the crux of the issue. They have prevented me from going forward with my subpoena of records from APS. I think it's important that we know what happened in the 2014 election cycle and whether or not it did or did not have undue influence, and so we're in Superior Court asking for an investigation to be done to determine that.
Now, you've been fighting this fight for a while now. Do you think that APS has undue influence over the rest of the commission?
Well, I think the actions speak louder than the words sometimes, and so the actions that have been taken by the commissioners, and I stayed away from a accusation of undue influence for the longest possible time. I tried to basically couch it that it was something that's possible and could happen if the wrong activities are allowed to take place. But when I was able to hire an expert in the utility bookkeeping area, the commission would not fund. They voted not to fund that expert to do that investigation. And at the time, Commissioner Tobin told me, well, you've been talking about doing subpoenas of records, so why don't you do that? And I said, okay, I go forward with that. Obviously, I need an attorney in order to enforce those subpoenas, because if they're challenged, as they were, APS challenges them, you end up in court. So APS sued to stop the subpoenas. The commissioners voted to fund an attorney for me to enforce those subpoenas. APS withdrew their suit, and at that time then the commission decided, well, I didn't need an attorney anymore, and so they withdrew my funding from that attorney.
So let me ask you, though, what's APS's reason for this rate increase? Why are they saying that they need it right now?
Well, I can't answer for them. I don't understand, because there's some comparisons out there that sort of don't match up. When a rate case is requested, the utility provides books and records in the test year. And at the first review of those records, our staff and RUCO, between the two of them, one of them said, well, no increase necessary. The other one said there might even be a decrease required.
Okay, so basically, so staff is saying there may be no increases necessary.
Well, this was in the very first step of the process. Yeah.
So then we get to a point where all of a sudden APS is saying we need this rate increase.
Well, then we go into this settlement agreement function, and so the settlement agreement, APS came in asking for somewhere in the neighborhood of $11 as opposed to the 4 or 7. That was their starting point. They ended up with considerably less, but they ended up with an increase. So there's been comparisons made between Salt River Project. Salt River Project is a utility, second largest utility in the state, not regulated by us. Their CEO, he makes about $1 million a year. APS CEO makes $1 million a month. So,
well,
and the rates for APS have always been higher, to my knowledge, than Salt River Project.
Well, let me ask you this. Now, you've always been somebody who has been challenging the commission. Now we've seen a past commissioner has been accused of taking bribes. You aren't getting the access to records you want. You want to see if APS has undue influence over this commission. Do you think the public can trust that this body as a whole is working in the best interest of the public?
Well, I guess you have to just go by the information you receive. The information I receive, I think there is a lot of mistrust. And so that's part of all this. Let's get the trust back. Let's be transparent. Let's take a look at the records. Let's get to the bottom of all of this and move on. But as long as it's hidden, as it was in 2014 through the dark money mechanism that was in place, then I think there's going to be distrust.
So that said, do you think this commission is corrupt in any way?
Well, I'd hope not.
That's not a strong answer. I mean, I hope not is not a definitive answer.
I think they're getting some guidance, misleading guidance maybe. There's something that bothers me considerable by the decisions that are being made. I see this job as representing first the ratepayers and the citizens. I mean, we also have to be aware of the health of the utility. You don't want your lights going out and your air conditioning shutting off in the middle of the afternoon at 115. So, so we've got a balance we have to maintain.
So last question then. I mean, considering there's, you know, the commission has taken a beating over the past few years for various controversies. Again, you know, former commissioners being accused of bribery. There's other questions about the 2014 election and the dark money. Should this commission just be appointed by the governor? Should we forego the elections and be appointed?
I don't believe so. I don't think that solves the problem. I think that centralizes the opportunity for mischief. If you're going to corrupt and you know, if you're the person that's out there trying to corrupt something, one point of contact is probably a lot easier than 5.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks a lot. That's all the time we have for this segment. We're going to have to take a quick break, but we do have more to come here on Politics Unplugged. President Donald Trump announces a new plan for Afghanistan. Just ahead, a closer look at what changed his mind about a bigger U.S. presence in that war-torn country. And a close to home, inside a campaign-style rally in Phoenix, Donald Trump takes some jabs at Arizona's 2 senators, while outside protesters face tear gas. Go ahead here on Politics Unplugged.
When big news breaks.
Chaos erupts after President Trump's campaign rally in downtown Phoenix.
More Arizonans turn to Arizona's family.
Starting to see that line of police here.
You can see it live happening right here on 3TV and CBS 5 News.
Doing whatever it takes to get you the story.
Smoke coming our way.
We've covered protests down here before, but nothing like this.
This situation definitely not under control here.
3TV and CBS 5, Arizona's family, covering the big stories with the power of 2.
Dealing with the insurance company is like talking to a brick wall.
Call us the moment you've been in a wreck, and we'll hammer the insurance company to get you every dollar you deserve. In a wreck, you need a check? Call 977-1900.
When the day turns into night, my hash browns turn into my new $3 Munchie mashups. Crispy hash browns, tasty white cheese, mashed up with your choice of savory egg and bacon, buffalo chicken and ranch, or jalapenos and bacon. Each for just $3. Why? Because everything gets more interesting at night. Vampires wake up, werewolves come out, and the boogeyman gets his boogie on. So try my delicious $3 Munchie mashups and keep the party going until the sun comes up. Ooh, $3 Munchie mashups from Jack in the Box.
Yeah, we can get them submitted by Monday.
At U-Haul, we know every family moves at their own pace. Come on, guys. That's why we have U-Box.
Is that heavy?
Where you can pack in a day.
Hi, Mom.
In a week.
It's starting to snow.
In a month. We can store it or ship it.
I think that's the kitchen.
How?
You guys excited about the new house?
And when you want it.
Thanks, you've been lifesavers.
Don't want to lift a finger? We got you covered there, too. U-Box by U-Haul. Move at your pace. Reserve today at uhaul.com.
Hey, thanks for judging our first annual Air Park Beauty Contest.
Well, thanks, Coy. I sure like number 1. What do you think?
Well,
but look at number 2. She looks great in red. What do you think?
Well,
oh, but wait a minute. Look at the curves on number 3. She's the one.
Save $11,250 off MSRP on a new 2017 Ram 1500 Crew Cab. Your new Ram is just $29,995. The summer clearance event is on at Air Park Dodge.
So, Hemi, your garage or mine?
Air Park Dodge, your Ram dealer.
On average, there are over 10 car accidents every minute in the U.S. If you've been hurt in a wreck, Don't just be another number.
Pick up the phone and call us now. We'll get you every dollar you deserve.
Learn and grow is the way to go. Call 977-1900.
No one denies that we have inherited a challenging and troubling situation in Afghanistan and South Asia, but we do not have the luxury of going back in time and making different or better decisions. When I became president, I was given a bad and very complex hand, but I fully knew what I was getting into, big and intricate problems. But one way or another, these problems will be solved.
And that is President Donald Trump says it goes against his better instinct, but he will beef up U.S. presence in Afghanistan. He now says that's what it will take to win. And welcome back to Politics Unplugged. And joining us right now to talk about this latest decision by the president is Professor Glenn Fong with ASU's Thunderbird School of Global Management. Thank you for stopping by here. And let's just talk about this 180, basically, that Donald Trump has pulled here. On the campaign trail, candidate Trump was like, we need to pull out of Afghanistan. You know, now he is saying, we're adding more troops in there. How did he come to this decision?
So I think it's instructive that given the Trump administration's kind of opaque way in which he makes decisions, and it's explicitly so because, in his words, he doesn't want to telescope what he's doing and how he's going to do it and when he's going to do it. I think it's instructive to actually compare President Trump's coming into the White House with similar decisions by President Obama in 2009, also as a new candidate coming into the White House, facing an insurgent threat, also in Afghanistan. And in addition, the 2006, 2007 decision by President Bush to engage in the Iraq surge when Al-Qaeda threatened to overtake the government in Iraq.
And let's listen to that soundbite, because I believe we have that queued up right now. Here's President Obama speaking about that several years ago.
And as Commander-in-Chief, I have determined that it is in our vital national interest to send an additional 30,000 U.S. troops to Afghanistan. So no, I do not make this decision lightly. I make this decision because I am convinced that our security is at stake in Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Again, that kind of leads me to the question we were talking about a little bit before the show. What is the national security interest for the United States now at this point, after 16 years of war? I mean, think about that. In a couple of years, there are going to be troops over there in Afghanistan that weren't even born when September 11th happened, which was the trigger for us getting engaged in that war.
So it's, thank you for showing that clip. I mean, you couldn't take 2 or 3 more different presidents than President Bush, President Obama, and President Trump. Very different backgrounds, very different personalities and demeanors. And they go into this decision-making process, and they come out, all 3 of them, with surges. So this says something about the policy-making process, and it also says something about the external constraints that even a candidate like President Trump as candidate coming out against, well, again, President Trump is renowned for saying lots of different things. So
certainly
he's both on record for being for these wars and against these wars, but he's definitely been on record against these wars. And then you take President Obama, who campaigned to get us out of these wars, and they both, in their first year, come up with these increases in troop strength.
But let's talk about that increased troop strength here. So obviously, there's an increase of about 4,000 troops. You're saying brings the total to about 12,000 troops in Afghanistan.
Yes.
At its peak, it was well over 100,000 troops over there. What is 12,000 troops going to do in Afghanistan that 100,000 troops couldn't do?
Very good. And Dennis, this is where we get some differences between the administrations. And let's recall that President Bush in 2007 plussed up the Iraqi presence of the United States by 20,000, and that was on top of about 150,000 in Iraq. So that's about a 15% increase. President Obama, as the clip showed, plussed up by 30,000. Now actually, even before his decision in December 2009, he had plussed up by 20,000 even before that 30,000. So that's a total of 50,000 that he plussed up in his first year in office, and that represented a 100% increase over the forces that he began with in January 2009. And then we have about 8,400. Our President Trump begins with about 804,000, adding another 4,000. So that's about a 47% increase. So it's in absolute numbers, Trump's plus up is smaller, but in percentage terms, it's about in between the 100% of Obama and the 15% of Bush.
Well, let me ask you this then, since President Trump has said we are going to pull out once we succeed over there, once there is success. We've, again, been there for 16 years.
Right.
Doesn't look like we're going away anytime soon.
Right.
What does success look like over there, and what would it take?
Thank you, Dennis. And again, the tea leaves are hard to read with this administration, but again, with the past experiences, to me, it looks like that these presidents are facing situations in which victory is politically unattainable. Although the president speaks to, we are going to win, we're going in to be victorious, and we are going to defeat the Taliban. In fact, his own defense secretary, Mattis, is on record for saying that there is no military solution to the Afghanistan. And then on Tuesday, after the Monday night speech, Secretary of State Tillerson also said that we're driving towards a political solution. Now, the president's speech himself, he didn't talk about we're going to go and bring the Taliban to the table. It was about defeating and killing the insurgents. So again, it's the tea leaves are reading different ways. But the way I read the situation actually reminds me of yet another American president in another war, and that was President Johnson in the Vietnam War, where victory, again, was politically unattainable because of the entrenched North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong. But also, all of these presidents do not want to suffer defeat. Right? So the last thing you want to suffer. So what that becomes, what that drives the decision, I think this would drive all the presidents to a common position, is to prosecute a war in which you do not lose. And so many of the analyses out there that this isn't really a strategy of victory, but this is a strategy not to lose.
Well, thanks a lot for joining here. I could talk to you a lot more about this subject here, but this is all the time we have for this segment. But we do have more to come here on Politics Unplugged. Just ahead, some Republicans may feel they have another war in their hands, a war with their own president, as Mr. Trump goes after everyone from Mitch McConnell to Arizona's 2 senators.
And nobody wants me to talk about your other senator, who's weak on borders, weak on crime.
After the break, a closer look at why the president is going after his own. Here on Politics Unplugged.
This is our summer vacation, and this is the Acura MDX. Hurry to the Acura Summer Performance Event for some of the most exciting offers of the year.
Visit your Valley Acura dealer for attractive offers on the MDX.
You hear that? That power. You know the freedom a Harley-Davidson gives you. Harley just isn't a bike, it's a lifestyle. Why should your career be any different? MMI has an exclusive training program developed in partnership with Harley-Davidson so you can do what you love.
Just a one phone call I made to MMI changed my life.
Train to be a Harley technician with instructors who live and breathe the same lifestyle.
MMI puts you in a position to succeed.
Call or visit mmitech.edu today.
For years, men have enjoyed their man caves without guilt. Now, it's Mama's turn. Welcome to my she shed. Got my favorite outfit on. my literature, my Armando. And these are my treats. I'm just gonna have one if that's okay. Of course it's okay. This is my world. Fiber One 90-calorie brownies. All mine.
Interesting resume. Says here you were once the king of France?
Yep, but I gave that up for love.
Have you ever been convicted of a felony?
Convicted? No, never convicted.
Melvin?
Yes.
At Parker & Sons, all our technicians are trust certified for your protection. If you want quality work at a fair price, call Parker for all your plumbing, heating, cooling, and drain cleaning needs.
And I promise there'll be no Melvins on your job.
Call 602 to repair to get it done.
This is our summer vacation, and this is how we spend Labor Day. Hurry to the Acura Summer Performance Event for some of the most exciting offers of the
Visit
year.
your Acura dealer today for 0.9% APR financing for well-qualified buyers on the 2017 Acura RDX. Don't miss this event going on now.
Join Mesa Art Center as they kick off their new season Friday, September 8th from 6 to 10 p.m. The season kickoff festival is free family fun with live music by Ovez, hot rod and custom car displays, amazing circus performers, food vendors, and more. Learn more at mesaartcenter.com.
The Today's Patio Labor Day sale is your chance to save on Arizona's largest selection of outdoor furniture, decor, and more. For a limited time, pay no sales tax and receive free delivery and setup. The Labor Day sale at Today's Patio.
And welcome back to Politics Unplugged. It is now time to talk it out with our partners from First Strategic. With us today is Marcus Dellartino and Barry Dill. Let's just jump right into this and start talking about the presidential visit here. He came here.
Did the president visit?
It was, yeah,
well,
I mean,
I must have missed it.
Obviously, he came here last week. You know, there was so much to unpack here. Let's just start first and foremost with just your thoughts and your general observations watching the speech.
Well, my lasting thought is that was what my first thought was, is that it had the potential to incite a riot and should have been canceled on the heels of Charlotte. Shouldn't have been here at all, and it was uncalled for.
He's the president of the United States. It's a public space.
This was not a presidential. What presidential address did he make? He made a campaign speech.
I get it. He's the president of the United States, though. He's entitled to come and speak anywhere.
And I'm sorry as well. My other lasting impression is that there were just as many knuckleheads inside the hall as there were outside that many say may have caused some trouble.
Yeah, and you know, it was a lot of. I thought.
Let's be clear. Nobody inside the hall caused the trouble. It was the people outside the hall.
But that doesn't mean that they're still not knuckleheads.
Well,
let's go with the question.
I thought the big takeaways from the night was that he was threatening to shut the government down to build a border wall that, remember, Mexico was supposed to originally pay for, not the American taxpayer, as well as he kind of teased out this idea that he's going to pardon Sheriff Joe in the future.
I'm so distracted by those cool-looking glasses, I forgot the question. No, you know what he did? He teased a couple important things. One is we're up against a debt ceiling and a budget, and what he's saying is we're putting both on hold until I get my wall. That, by the way, comes at significant cost to the taxpayers, which is interesting because we're not supposed to be paying for it. Mexico's supposed to be paying for it. So I need to know. I need to know that part of the plan before I buy a wall that I believe I already paid for with my taxes. But number two is he did exactly what we thought he would do on Sheriff Joe, which was essentially say, we're going to do it.
And I think we have a soundbite queued up here on him talking about Sheriff Joe.
And then I'd like to add a third. I'd like to add a third
take a listen to that right now.
You know what? I'll make a prediction. I think he's going to be just fine, okay?
What happens if he does do that? I mean, I've talked to a lot of people in the community. When the conviction came down, his criminal conviction for contempt of court, it was celebration for his critics, for his opponents, but it was tempered because they were saying, let's wait and see what the president does. If he was to pardon that, they would feel like justice had been taken away from them.
I think you will have events all across the country expressing their opposition to such an outrageous act by the president.
You know what was interesting is watching, I think there's some discipline going on in the White House, though, if you notice. I mean, he did not endorse anybody specifically, which you know he wants to do. He did not pardon Joe at the event, which you know he's talking about.
What are you talking about? That was a crazy off-scripted event.
He did not use Flake or McCain's name, but everybody knew who he was talking about. Clearly somebody has told him you can't do these things.
Here's another lasting impression. I think he tore into his staff off the cuff. Like, I will not mention your senators by name, but he went ahead to proclaim whatever he had against them. I'm not gonna. I've been told not to do. Well, I'm not gonna do.
But
Joe
it's a far
Arpaio,
stretch of what he would have done. So clearly there is some progress being made, which goes to my point about General Kelly is trying to get a hold of this situation.
Right.
I think it's.
Let's bring it back. Let's bring it back. Let's talk a little bit about how this affects Arizona. A lot of talk about who might be running against Jeff Flake. So, although he didn't call out Jeff Flake by name that night, the next morning he was tweeting that Jeff Flake was weak on border, weak on crime, and whatnot. Now, a lot of people are looking at Kelly Ward as a potential challenger, or she is the challenger to Jeff Flake. There's a new poll suggesting that she would beat Jeff Flake in a primary if it was held here today. What's this visit for her mean for this primary coming up?
Well, certainly I think it was a plus. It wasn't as big a plus as she could have gotten, right? She wasn't up on stage. She didn't say, I endorse you. But, you know, at the same time, you've got the White House talking internally about other candidates in the race. And so there's a miscommunication happening between the president and internal.
And let's play a little soundbite from her campaign ad, her latest campaign ad here.
I won't talk about him.
The president doesn't need to name names, because I will. Jeff Flake is weak.
And at the same time, the PAC, supported by Senate President Mitch McConnell, has put out an ad attacking Ward, among other things, calling her Chemtrail Kelly. And there's that ad right there. This is not that was not a new attack ad against her.
The irony is that this guy's voted with the president 98 or 96%. I can't remember, but over 90% of the time with the president, and he's beaten
What's hard
93.5%.
He's criticizing Congress for not getting a legislative package done, and then he's not criticizing his own supporters. For example, just on Friday morning, he sent out a tweet about a very loyalist senator from Tennessee, Bob Corker, who had the audacity to question whether or not he was fit for office. I mean, he's after McConnell. He's after the majority, the Speaker of the House, and I don't know how you make friends and pass legislation when you're criticizing people from your own party.
Now let's talk a little bit after that rally. Obviously, passions were running pretty high out there. We saw some protests in the streets in Phoenix afterwards. There's some shots that you see of it right now. You can see the tear gas, the pepper spray out there. Your general thoughts about that, Barry? How do you think the police handled this?
Listen, I think that the police did what they felt was correct, and I think the audience of about 8,000 people deserve credit for not letting it get more out of hand. So I commend both sides.
And I do want to show a piece of Marcus's favorite video here right there, and just kind of have you react to this one.
Right in the ding-ding.
Oh, wow.
That hurt.
Hey, listen, if anybody knows the cop who made that shot, I will buy him a beer. I'll probably buy him a six-pack because I've been entertained so much this week.
I bet that hurt.
The other interesting thing, if you guys watched this on Channel 3, Mike Watkis walks around in tear gas like he could eat a tear gas can.
Well, like I've said all along, Mike Watkis puts pepper spray on his eggs in the morning.
The rest of the reporters are crying. Mike
all right, but that is all the time we have for Politics Unplugged this week. Be sure to join us next week. Good night.